Right, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu wa safiyyuhu min khalqihi wa khaliluhu wa aminu ala wahyih. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who made it possible for us to start this month, and we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who will fast this month with sincerity and therefore qualify, one, for their sins to be forgiven, and two, inshallah, to make the list of the people who are going to be exempt from hellfire. How many days now?
7.
Today is 7. Today is the 7. 7 days, so we're talking about 1/4 of it is gone. And before you know it, it's going to be over. It's going to go very fast. Except that the only way we can slow it down is by taking advantage of the time. And if you're going to stop the clock, just take advantage of the time. Do what you're supposed to be doing, and therefore you don't worry about the time passing by. Again, we're going to start, as we did before, with the Jumu'ah. What was the main point that we raised in Jumu'ah? What are the main points? One was, what's the purpose of Ramadan, or how do we measure success in Ramadan? We said
by the change, transformation.
First by what you do, and then how much change happens. And actually, the second is better criteria, because that tells you whether you had a successful month or not. It's like any treatment. They compare people before and after. Medicine, diet, etc. To say that it is effective, they bring the person before and after, and they say, look at the difference. Same thing for Ramadan. Just compare yourself before and after. If you are the same person, then you missed it. So the change, the amount of change that happens within the person is the best criterion that tells you how successful was the month. Of course, it is related on what you do during the month. And it is related on how prepared you were to begin with plans and goals and schedule, etc. So it's never too late. Even if we did not start well, we can regroup. That's what we focused on Jumu'ah. We said, take this weekend as a time out, just make adjustments, and then try to take advantage of the rest of the month. One thing about this month is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this month is like concentration of life, meaning every aspect in Ramadan is not new. It's the same thing should be outside Ramadan, except in Ramadan is more condensed, more concentrated. Now, time is precious even outside Ramadan. But in Ramadan, the sense of urgency increases, and we feel that the time is very precious because we have only 30 days. So we know that we have to race against the clock. That should be the case outside Ramadan. Why? Because we are racing against another clock, which is life is also temporary. I mean, the only difference between the two is that you know how long Ramadan is going to last, you don't know how long life is going to last. But at the end of the day, both of them are temporary. And in both cases, the clock is ticking, and therefore you have to have that sense of urgency. So in a way, Ramadan reminds us of that important fact. So we practice the sense of urgency in Ramadan. Hopefully we're going to continue afterwards. Allah created us to worship Him. Not only Ramadan, all the time. But in Ramadan we have that aspect also more concentrated and condensed. We are closer to that, to fulfill it, than outside Ramadan. Because in Ramadan, between the fasting and the prayer and the Qiyam al-Layl and etc., you find yourself almost in a state of worship all the time, which is meant to be outside Ramadan. So it's like a primer, train you on a number of things during this month, for a whole month, so that you can continue to do them afterwards. The amount of change is very important. Why? And by the way, only people who are on a mission can take advantage of Ramadan in terms of change. Because if you are not on a mission, then you will be thinking that how much I can do during the month until it is over. But if you are on a mission, then you will be thinking how much energy I can gain so that I can carry on afterwards. So, like the prayer, it has much more meaning for the one who is on a mission. Why? Because if you are on a mission, you need that prayer. You need that spiritual recharging, because you're facing a lot of challenges, and you are carrying a huge and demanding mission. So you need that. If you are not on a mission, prayer becomes a routine task that you don't know even why you're praying. Just praying because you have to. Fasting is the same thing. If you are on a mission, you should be waiting for this month. It's badly needed. Why? Because during this month you're going to be refueling, recharging, fine-tuning, shaping up spiritually, and gain a lot of spiritual energy that you're going to need for the rest of the year. So everything changes once a person is on a mission, even the ibadat themselves. And subhanAllah, for a reason, for a wisdom, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam introduced the mission before even the ibadat. They came later, which means that's what Islam is. But these are needed so that you can do that job properly. And these have to be, you have to stay away from them. Why? Because they are distraction. So when alcohol was forbidden for people who are on a mission, they cannot afford to be distracted. So this has to stay out. We have to stay away from it. And prayer is needed. And if you cannot put your hand in your pocket and give money away, what kind of sacrifice you're going to make for a mission? I mean, if you cannot put money or give money away, are you going to give your time? Are you going to put your life at risk or not? So that's why even before Muslims were permitted to, for the qital or the fighting was allowed, it was never something that is recommended, allowed and under certain contexts. People were asked to fast first and then to pay zakat. Because that's, if you cannot make this kind of sacrifice, you're not going to be able to do the rest. So you can see how the systemic paradigm all revolve around something in the center, in the middle, which is this mission. That Islam is a mission. And you take that mission away, the whole thing collapses. Even the ibadat, yes, even the ibadat. Even the beliefs, even the belief in the hereafter and the belief in Allah become very obsolete. So even the aqa'id or the beliefs and even the rituals, the ibadat, become very, very superficial, very shallow. Why? Because they are disconnected, once they are disconnected from the heart of this deen, which is that Islam is a mission. Once you subscribe to Islam as a mission, then these ibadat become having completely different meaning, different life itself will have a different meaning. So that was the first thing that we focused on. Second thing, which is a thought that came to my mind, I think Friday morning maybe, or Thursday night, is the fact that all that we're doing in Ramadan, I mean, we were not doing it before. And we think that we didn't have time. So where this time came from? I mean, now you spend every day, for those who pray Taraweeh, you drive, between the time you drive, you pray Taraweeh and you come back, that's about 2 hours, hour and a half every day. Where this time came from? I mean, before we say we don't have time. You come to the mosque more frequently, you recite Quran, and so in a way, I mean, this month basically strips us of the excuses. I mean, the idea that I'm consumed with work, I have no time, I'm very exhausted. It turns out that that's not true. You know, we were deceiving ourselves. Why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us you can. You can do a lot more than what you thought you can do. So in a way, Ramadan revealed for us what? Revealed our potential. The dormant potential that we were not leveraging it. SubhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. So when you put these ideas together, Ramadan becomes a great opportunity. It's not a burden anymore. It's a great opportunity. It shows you, again, the spirit of Ramadan with the motivation it engenders in us, showed us that we have a lot of potential that we were not leveraging. Nowadays, you're sleeping much less than before, and you're still okay. Nothing happened. We're sleeping much less, we're doing much more, and things are still okay, which means that we have been wasting a lot of time before Ramadan. So in a way, this month exposed us. It's a good news that tells us, no, you still have a lot of potential that can be leveraged. So that was a point that I wanted to share because, as I said, it came to mind that if you add the time you spend in Taraweeh, the time you spend in the Quran, Ramadan, etc., that time, where did it come from? It just were wasted before, basically. I mean, we did not take advantage of that time before. So these are the thoughts that we focused on, and then, of course, the second khutbah we talked about the Muhammad Ali, the legend Muhammad Ali, and I said that this is really a role model in terms of someone who were achiever in his career, and also he did a lot of work outside his career. He lived a life much bigger than his. And subhanAllah, there must be, we don't know, but there must be a lot of sincerity in this man. Because for the last number of years, he was not even talking, but just his facial expression, I think, had impact on people. There must be a lot of sincerity somewhere, because someone was not talking at all. But just when they bring his face, you can see there is a lot of facial expression that radiated on people. There's a lot of goodwill in this person. And the stance he took, that's a big lesson. Someone who believes in something and took a stand and paid the price for it. I'm not going to fight in Vietnam. You're going to go to jail, fine. You're going to be stripped of your world championship, fine. But I'm not going to go to fight in this war. And then we talked about the resilience. This is the only, I think, the only athlete in history, definitely the only boxer, who lost his title 3 times and regained his title. Usually, boxers, when they lose a title, they're gone. I mean, they never come back. This is the only one who lost his title 3 times and regained it. It shows you a lot of determination, a lot of confidence, a lot of resolve. It's important to have for especially young people, to have a person like this as a role model. I always recommend people to read biographies of successful people, successful individuals, Muslims or non-Muslims, because those we see them successful, they were not born like this, they were made. I mean, we see NBA player, we see someone very successful business person, etc. It didn't happen overnight. And you go, you will find there are some rules that when people are focused, when they have a dedication or commitment, etc. I mean, I read that both President Clinton and President Obama had in their mind very early on in their life set their eyes on the presidency, to be president of the United States. Even though both their background, by the way, was not favorable at all. For Obama, it's very obvious. It's the son of an immigrant and was raised by his mother. Wasn't really very favorable background. Clinton is the same thing. Was not really very favorable. Was not very good, easy childhood that he lived, etc. So it tells you something about this country also. Tells you something about this country. If somebody comes from that background and they can take the highest office in the land, it means that Muslims can blame only themselves if they don't make it. I mean, if we in America, success is the norm. Failure is the exception. It takes an effort to fail in this country. really takes effort to fail. You can see a lot of communities, a lot of ideas. Some of them are silly ideas. They flourished in this country and they had a very successful community behind them, etc. So it's really, we are put in a great test, by the way. With Islam and in America, if you fail, I mean, I don't know how you did it. I used to say before about Libya, you know, Libya, a very rich country. At a certain point in time, their population was about 2 million. So they didn't need any government. They need just a CPA or accountant who just sell the oil, get the money and distribute it, and everybody will be very rich. Gaddafi managed to make them poor. I always ask, how did you do it? Just tell us, how did you manage to do this? How did you manage to make these people face poverty, even though there is so much money, much more than money than the people need? So again, here, I think people, at a certain point, they're going to be asking us, how did you fail as a community? How did you make it? You have this great, very inspiring, empowering faith, and you are in the land of opportunities, and how come you didn't do it yet? So we only have ourselves to blame. I'm very confident, inshallah, have a lot of hope. If Muslims take this seriously, this journey of discovering the true Islam, I'm very, very optimistic in terms of that we can, inshallah, turn things around. And we can have a generation who stop this decline and start climbing again. So these are some thoughts that I want to share, especially from the Jumu'ah. Again, it's just a reminder for all of us. Ramadan is not 1 week, is not Night of Qadr, is not, it's 30 days. You just have to keep this pace, stay focused, and keep your eyes on the big prize. Yeah, that's also another point that we raised, that it's not okay to do good in Ramadan. You have to try to do great. And you know, they say good is the enemy of great. Good is the enemy of great. A lot of people, they don't try to be great because they're happy they are good. And there is a book that says good to great. The statement was made in this book. Good is the enemy of great. So many people don't aspire high because they're happy where they are. No. In Ramadan, and I want all of us to think in terms of race and competition. You're racing against the clock. That's one. The clock is ticking. Already 7 days has gone. 2, you're racing and competing with others. And you know, among these others are the companions. And we're competing for the same thing. So we're competing not only with Muslims of today, we're all Muslims. So we're competing, that's the standard. 3, you're racing or competing against yourself. Meaning try to make this the best possible. Try to do better than others. And try to have this sense of urgency because the clock is ticking. And keep your eyes on the standard, which is the fasting of the Prophet ﷺ. That will keep you always motivated. So you don't just feel good because you're praying Tarawih, etc. It's good. Nobody can deny that. But you keep always challenging yourself. Why? Because, as I said, the clock is ticking. It's a race. It is a competition. You want to do not only good, but you want to do the best, and you want to do better than others, the best you can, and you want to come as close as possible to the standard. That's what you should keep in mind in Ramadan. That will keep you motivated till the last minute. So you will never just become complacent just because you did a good job for the first few days. No. And keep your eyes, as I said, on the big prize, which is 1, to have our sins forgiven, and 2, to make it to the list of the people who are going to be exempt from hellfire, and 3, of course, to emerge from this month with a lot of energy. And if we manage to do that, then we will be talking, inshallah. Towards the end of Ramadan, we're going to be talking about what can we do and should we do with that energy. Because we're not going to harness energy and then allow shaitan to make us lose it quickly. We're going to stick to that, and inshallah we'll talk towards the end of Ramadan about how can we leverage that energy that we gathered here to push this idea, first of all in terms of us embodying it, two, in terms of mastering it, becomes yours, capable of articulating it, and three, in terms of spreading the word, getting this message across. I mean, every day, and I come through, or something will confirm to me that this message is badly needed. This message is badly needed. It's not going to be easy to get it across. It's heavy. It's heavy and requires a lot of transformation, and people nowadays, unfortunately, you are not the only game in town. There are other speakers who are telling people that by taking painkillers, you are good. So why somebody is going to come to do surgery and all this transformation? We're telling some people something that is not easy. But as I said, it's badly needed. Especially nowadays, I don't see any other product in the market that is really attractive to people. I told you that especially young people nowadays, they're facing what? Traditional Islam, which clearly they don't like it. That's why we're forcing it on them, even at home. Traditional Islam clearly is not attractive. It's not inspiring, it's not relevant. Now you have the political Islam or activist, Islam of activism. It also has lost a lot of its appeal, especially after the Arab Spring and many of these movements came to power and failed. It lost a lot of its appeal. It's not appealing anymore for young people, either here or on Muslim world. Then there is abandoning Islam, and there is ISIS. These are the options. Make no mistake about it. Two are completely rejected, and the other two options, that's what most young people now are facing. You either are drafted into this mess, into extremism and terrorism, or you just abandon this faith and say, I can do without. I'm okay, I don't need it. If these are the options, I can do without. And that's a trend, I'm afraid, is going to increase if nothing is done. If nothing is done, not many people are going to be attracted to the extremism and terrorism and sacrifice their career, etc. No. But the abandoning faith is going to be very appealing.
It's happening every day.
It's going to be very appealing. Keep it as a culture. We can go on Eid Day, celebrate it, etc. Sometimes Iftar, Ramadan. Slowly people, even they will not be fasting. Because fasting, we took it as a culture. Because we were raised in society where everybody is fasting. That's not the case here. So there is no point if somebody does not accept Islam here, will accept only fasting. So I'm very concerned that if nothing done serious to reconcile young people with the true faith of Islam, the faith that I found very inspiring, very empowering, and I have no doubt if they find it, they will be very proud of it, they will love it. Because it will ease a lot of tension inside. It gives a meaning and a purpose to life. And a lot of either or, a lot of dichotomy that they're suffering from, they will find out that these are artificial. Being a Muslim, being American, being successful in this life, being successful in the hereafter, etc. These are very artificial dichotomy. You don't have to choose between the two. It's just both. This deen make you very successful in this life before the hereafter. So it's if we keep doing this, continue with this journey of discovering the true Islam, and try to rally with us or draft with us as many people as possible in this journey, the more people get close to the true Islam, the more, as I said, they will find it has nothing to do with all the options that they were mentioned. Islam that was brought by Muhammad ﷺ has nothing to do with traditional Islam, has nothing to do, very little to do with political Islam, has very little to do, has nothing to do, of course, with extremism and terrorism. Nothing. I mean, it's the similarity is very superficial. You may think that, yes, we believe in Allah, they believe in Allah, we believe in hereafter, same beliefs, same rituals, we pray 5 times, they pray 5 times a day, we fast, they fast, etc. You can say, oh, so it's the same. No, it is not. Proof, results. The results tells, look at what that Islam produced. Quality of people and the change in the world. With a small number of people. Look at the current one, what is producing. It's puzzling me to see, especially in Muslim countries and even here. Mosques are full. A lot of people are practicing Islam. But everything in the society is going down, including the manners of people. That tells you something is wrong with us. I mean, this is not deen that is changing people. This is a deen that is superficial, that people added on top of what they have. So the mass they have, they add on it prayer and hijab and Quran, etc. But that's not the deen that changed people. The deen that was brought by Muhammad ﷺ transformed people completely. They are different people, they think differently, their priorities in life became different, their dedication it's completely different, transformed people completely. That's not the deen now. This deen nowadays that doesn't transform. And if it does, it's in the wrong direction. Makes a person isolated, or makes it rude, or makes it terrorist, or so no transformation. And when it happens, if there is transformation, it is usually in the wrong direction. So there is nothing. It's a very, very superficial similarity. The beliefs and the rituals. Why? We go back. Because these beliefs and these rituals were attached to a mission. When they were disconnected from that mission, they lost their meaning. They're not producing anything. You find a person praying, and this person cheating in school or at work, and don't have even guilt feeling. No work ethics. Everybody who's familiar with what's going on in Muslim world know that the manners of people it's in free fall. I mean, you go this year, it's worse than last year. Even the language that people use. Nowadays, it's not safe to walk with your wife or your daughter or mother, etc., in the street. I mean, from what you're going to hear first. That's if nothing more worse can happen to you. Just from what you're going to hear, it's not recommended. I mean, in many Muslim countries, unfortunately, it's not recommended that you do that. So that's where things have reached. Forget about that in all indicators. Whenever they have a positive indicators, then we are at the bottom. If it is negative, we make it to the top. We jump, we are on top. All indicators, transparencies, economic development, you name it, education system, etc. If it is a good indicator, then you find Muslim countries, most of them are in the bottom. If it is a negative indicator, we jump, we become competing for the first place. Corruption, then you find us very high, very top. Education system, I don't know how many, hundreds I think, or thousands of universities. No Muslim university or no Arab university made it into the top, I don't know how many hundreds. So it's, and sometimes I read those comparisons between very small European countries. And they don't compare them with a Muslim country, they compare them with the Muslim world. I mean, when they compare Israel, for example, they don't compare it with a Muslim country or Arab country, they compare it with the whole thing. So how much research is done here, and how much research is done in the Arab world, for example. And still, even when they combine, they don't even match. So saying this not to see the reality as is, so that we know that no amount of cosmetic change will do it. No painkillers, we just have to face it as is, and we have to go to the drawing board. Muslims, the situation of Muslims will not change until they change. Muslims will not change until their understanding of the deen changes. Because the deen is the process. We are the product. We as individuals and as a community, we are the product. If something is wrong about the product, unless you fix the process, then we're going to still have defect product. We're going to continue to have defective products. So the process for us is understanding of Islam. And we missed the point. It's a very simple point, very simple. Before Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send customized message to special message to special people. Tailor it to them. Focusing on their problems, their issues. And it was not preserved. And then a new messenger with a message that is customized to another group of people, and that continued until Isa alayhi salam. Come Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is something fundamental that has changed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the whole thing. And promised to preserve it. So what is our job? To do the job that was done before with a new messenger and fresh message. To extract from Islam that is valid for all times and all places. Extract what? An understanding that is suitable for our time and our place. Got it? This deed, we say, and it is true, it is valid for all times and all places. By the way, we use it in the wrong context. What it means, it is valid for all times and all places. It has all the solutions. It's a pharmacy. It's everything there. Does it mean that everything in it is suitable for all times and all places? No. The whole thing is suitable for all times and all places.
Not the same.
So our job becomes what? Our job is to extract from the text, the Quran, and the authentic Sunnah of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That is compatible with the Quran, by the way. Because a lot of time we have serious issues when it comes to how people understand hadith. It's not only that it came through a reliable chain, it has to be compatible with the Quran. I mean, the work that Imam Bukhari and Muslim and others have done, it's wonderful. It's a great job. I mean, you can't imagine how much work they did to filter. They said they start with hundreds of thousands of hadith, by the way. Yeah. So they end up with those few thousand, how much they filtered. But it is not perfect. Yeah. It's a human effort. So it doesn't mean that if it is in Bukhari, it is authentic, this is true. No. There is another step. I mean, the chances are, there's a very high chance because of the job and the scrutiny they did. So but it's not 100%. So there is another thing that is compatibility with the Quran. I mean, even if the hadith came through a reliable chain, but it contradicts something, one can't take it. I mean, we get it wrong. I mean, we elevated the work of Imam Bukhari and Muslim, etc., to make it almost sacred. No, it is not. It's still human effort that is not perfect. As I said, the chances are very high that the hadith, especially if it is agreed upon, that this hadith is authentic. Chances extremely high, but it is not 100%. So we're not going to twist a verse to make it compatible with the hadith. No, we don't have to do it. Shouldn't. So the Quran is the one that Allah promised, because that's not a human effort. This is not a human effort. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised, and we know how it came. And you know how it was documented. And it was documented very early on, unlike the hadith. So that's not to discount the work These people, if it was not for their work, then it would be a total mess. Then we didn't know at all. But at least now we have sources with each hadith in them has very, very high chance that it is authentic. So that's what I mean by the text. Our job is to go back to the text, which are valid for all times and all places. Meaning what? Meaning they have all the answers and all the solutions. They have the ingredients of all the answers and all the solution to the problem, the question that people face, wherever they are. Whether they are in jungles or whether they are in New York. All right? But still, because of that, because Islam is valid for all times and all places, Muslims, wherever they are, at every time and every place, they have to extract from it an understanding, which they call construct, that is suitable for their time and their place. This exercise was not done for a very long time. We're talking about almost centuries. This exercise we are living now dependent on what? Dependent on the work that was done
1,000 years.
Centuries ago and thousands of miles away. Even though that construct, when the exercise is done right, it will produce something that is not universal. It's something that is suitable there. It's like the message of Lut alayhi salam was suitable for his people. You cannot take it to another people. The problem does not exist. So you cannot take it, you cannot transport it. You cannot transplant an understanding of Islam from one era to another or from one geographic area to another. Now, if this exercise is done properly, does the job of Muslims over? No, they still have to keep it fresh. Why? Because life is changing. So even if you did it right, and now you have something that is relevant and inspiring and indigenous and empowering, etc., you still have the duty to keep it fresh. Keep it fresh and relevant how? With this two-way interaction between the reality and the text and your brain. How? With your brain, you extract more guidance from the Quran and from the text and infuse them to reform and fix reality. So the mission is about Islah. Now the reality will pose or raise issues that will force you to do what? To come up with solutions with your brain, enlightened by the text. Show me where this is being done. Neither the first part nor the second part. No wonder that you end up with something that is totally irrelevant. And you end up with the community that is frozen. The main duty, we didn't do the first step. That's the main duty. Muslims settle in new place, that's what they should be doing. Every other work can be used as extra reading. You know, in classes there is textbook and there is extra reading. The textbook is the Quran and the authentic Sunnah. That's what you use to develop the understanding that you need. The work of people done elsewhere or somewhere in history, you can use it as extra reading. It's not binding. It's not limiting. Shouldn't be limiting and shouldn't be binding. Shouldn't be even the starting point. It's extra reading. But you have to do the job. Now, what's the criteria for this deen or this understanding? How do we evaluate whether it was done properly or not? You need an understanding that helps achieving the goals of Islam without violating the thawabit or the constant of Islam. Need fahm, understanding that help people achieving the goals of Islam, maqasid, without violating the thawabit or the essence of Islam. Muhkamat, things that are clear cut. And that's what the companions understood very well. I mean, we mentioned sometimes we take casually or lightly things that were done by Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu and done by Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. Very, very serious. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, when he wanted to gather the Quran together, there are companions who told him that you're doing something that the Prophet didn't do. So these people are sticking to the letter, they forget about the goals, maqasid. And yet he did it. When he decided to fight the rebels, companions, including Umar ibn Khattab, say this is wrong. Fighting people who still saying, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. You're going against the hadith. That's what the hadith says. He went for it. Why? Because he was thinking, he didn't lose the bigger picture. That we may stick to the hadith and then lose the state altogether and lose the deen. So what's the point? We applied the hadith perfectly, fine. But what's the result? I mean, if Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu allowed people to pick and choose from this deen, it's gone. So we'll have people choose Islam without zakat, and other people will have Islam without salah. No, you don't have to take it. It's not. There is no compulsion in religion. But if you take it seriously. You can't say. Nobody is going to be going after you to check whether you pay zakat or not. But you can't say that I want Islam without the zakat. No, Islam is what it is. You take it or leave it. So that's what he considered. And then he considered something that nowadays applied in modern state. Let any city here or people or state refuse to pay taxes. What do you think is going to happen? That's what happens at the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq. These people are refused. They refuse to pay taxes. It is, we call it zakat, but that's what it is.
That's what started the war here.
Yeah, that's what happened. So, if he listened to them, that stick to the hadith regardless, you will see the results. Umar ibn Khattab went even more than that. It's not hadith, it's a verse. Umar ibn Khattab suspended the application of the verse in Quran. Clear cut. السارق والسارقة فاقطعوا أيديهما. It's very, there is no if and then about it. And you have a famine, and he said this is going to be suspended, we're not going to apply this. These are the people who are closest to the Prophet ﷺ. What was the question in their mind? Was it what the Prophet did? No, it was what the Prophet would have done.
What did he spend?
Spend the application of the cutting the hands of the thief. Because there is a famine.
No justice.
Yeah, he said the state has to offer people minimum, and then you can apply the law. But you don't just apply the law and you are failing to provide the minimum for people. He did that with the distribution of the spoils of war. There is a verse that mentioned the category of people who are entitled for the إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليه والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله. This is a verse in Surah Al-Tawbah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, where is it? إنما الصدقات للفقراء. Find the translation. It's a verse. Yeah, it's a verse 60, Surah 9. Surah 9, verse 60. In fact, the sadaqah, zakah, collection is for the poor, the helpless, those who employed to administer the funds, those who are collecting, zakat collectors, those whose heart need to be won over to the truth. Very poor translation. I mean, the people who want to attract them closer to the community, etc., maybe fearing them, etc. Ransoming the captives. If there are captives Zakat money will be paid so that you can free those captives. Helping the destitute who is in debt, paying the debts of people who are unable to pay, غارمين. In the way of Allah and for the wayfarer. Wayfarer, the one who is traveling and has lost everything, so zakat can be paid. Umar ibn Khattab came to this mu'allafati qulubum and said, we don't need them anymore. And we said mu'allafati qulubum when we were weak. We needed to basically appease some powerful people. Now we don't need them. I mean, we take these things, as I said, lightly. That's very serious. The way the spoils of war were distributed, Umar al-Khattab saw at a certain point in time that the people who are fighting, they're becoming very rich because the spoils of war is distributed among them, etc. So he changed the way it's distributed. I'm not saying to take lightly the nusus, no. I mean, these are extreme cases. But it tells you these people who are very close to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and use their judgment even in cases that involved a clear-cut text. Again, it's not a recommendation to say, okay, because that's easy. To say, let's try to achieve the goals of Islam without paying attention to the constants, that's a very easy job. And to stick to the text without paying attention to the result, that's also easy. But both of them are very inefficient. So put your eyes on the goals and stick to these. Stick to the constant of the deen. Hopefully 100%. But again, at the end of the day, it's the goal that is that should guide the decision. And you can understand why in Islam there are things that are completely forbidden. But if your life is at risk, you are permitted to drink or eat something that is haram, clear-cut haram. Why? Because saving lives is more important. Saving lives is the goal of Islam. So when that goal became at risk, tax takes the second, meaning the decision is more guided by fulfilling the goal. So suspended. Yeah. So this is basically, again, it's more and more we all coming to realize it's not easy, by the way. I'm sure it's not easy on you, it wasn't easy on me, it wasn't easy on anybody. It's not easy to discover after 20 or 30 or 40 years that basically what you had was not the right thing. But better be late than never. I mean, الرجوع إلى الحق فضيلة. And we'll see inshallah later on that one of the criteria, that one of the main factors that prevented people from following the guidance was the habits. We found our ancestors and our parents doing this, so we're not changing. No, you can't. You should be changing. You should be always looking for the truth, not sticking to what you are used to. And whenever you find the truth, you just abandon what you have, regardless of how long it was with you. Why? Because we should be always in pursuit of the truth. The moment you think you already have it, then you put yourself in trouble. You are always in search, looking for the truth, looking for grasping this wonderful religion of ours, the true one, that has now a lot of dust on it. You just have to find it and then remove all the dust to see it's a very appealing, very inspiring, very empowering. It came to me very natural. The more I understand the true Islam, it came to me very natural that this deen championed the great civilization. That's what it should do. So it wasn't exception. It wasn't something that is mystery. This deen, if it is understood properly, the true Islam, yes, the true Islam can champion a great civilization in any condition. If it did it in those conditions, can you think of worse conditions? And subhanAllah, it's amazing. Small number of people. Again, the people who changed the world were what? How many? 70, the ones who migrated from Mecca. 300 in Badr. I mean, how many people pray Jumu'ah here? One Jumu'ah in one mosque. These people, these few dozens, they changed the world. Now even the neighborhood, we don't have any impact on it, or the city in which we are in. These people, they changed the world in one generation. One, the number. Two, very poor, especially after migrating and leaving everything behind. Three, mostly were illiterate. Four, they were idol worshippers. The place they are in the middle of nowhere. And then belongs to tribes. They were fighting each other all the time for silly issues. That's where Islam worked. You tell me that it cannot produce a similar results in the United States in the 21st century? If the true Islam, no, it should. So if it didn't, then we don't have it. What we have is something else. It's very simple. It's a very simple logic. This deen, champion that great civilization in those conditions, cannot do it in 21st century in America. But what we have is not the real thing. What we have is an imitation. That's not brand. So that's not, we need to look for the true Islam. Yes?
The statement you said a minute ago that how you came to realize that what we learned was superficial. I find it, I mean, and I agree with you 100%, but I find it so difficult to relay this message to the public because it's almost like taboo that you're attacking our standards, our pillars of culture and religion. So I'm wondering, how do you see this message reaching more and more people without facing an avalanche of criticism and a war that you're destroying what they believe to be the core of Islam?
You are destroying Islam, they are telling us.
Beautiful question. Beautiful. That's exactly what every prophet has faced. None of us is prophet, and we're not bringing a new deen, but we're calling for an amount of change that's going to trigger the same resistance. I mean, these people, the people, all prophets, the reaction of their people was that you're destroying our religion and our culture and our tradition, etc. That's the typical answer. So you say, how can we get it across to as many people as possible? That part we can talk about. But without resistance, forget it. I mean, to do it without resistance, forget it. Now, only the first part I can answer. Because the second part, I'm 100% sure that you're going to face a lot of resistance. Because that's what happened, not with you and I, this happened with Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, with every prophet. And that was the typical answer everybody faced, every prophet. إِنَّ وَجَدْنَا آبَاءً عَلَى أُمَّةٍ وَإِنَّ عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ لَمُقْتَدُونَ. Abu Talib, the prophet's uncle, he knew that what Muhammad ﷺ was, he knew it was correct, but it was the deen, Aba and Ajdad. He couldn't. It's a matter of pride and a matter of attachment to a habit, etc. So I'm going to answer the first part, but forget about the second. You should brace and prepare yourself for that. Now the first part, number one, this message is not going to be very appealing, especially in the beginning, to anybody. Why? Because of the amount. I mentioned before, basically you're coming to someone who has been taking painkiller or drugs and you want to take them away first. Of course they're going to fight you very hard to make them face the ugly reality and to accept that for 20 years or 30 years what you had is not the right thing. So one is the power of the message, meaning that you really have to master this message and internalize it so that you can make the case for it very strong. It has to come from someone who's very confident, someone who's very, not articulate in terms of eloquent, but the very
Core one, yeah.
core value and very not forceful, but persistent, and comes from someone who's very confident in what you have. So the power of the message. And yet don't expect 100% response. I'm saying this can help. And the power of the model. I mean, if I knew you like for several years, if I didn't see major change in you because of this, I'm not going to listen to what you're going to tell me. It's the first thing that's going to attract me, is when I see a big change in you, very positive. Then I probably will be coming to you to ask what happened. I see you thinking differently. I see you conducting your life differently. I see your priorities. You're doing much more. You're much more engaged. What happened? That's the easiest way to convey this message. When the model comes first and the transformation. Because then the person who's coming to ask is very receptive. They like the product. They want to know how it happened. Remember the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. When the people in jail came to him and asked him to interpret their dreams, why they came to him? Because he was special. Inna naraka min al-muhsinin. They saw something special about him. He took advantage of that and then credited his faith. He didn't say this is because of me. So this is, he credited everything in him to the faith. And then told people about the faith. In Surah Yusuf, beautiful verses. So that's the typical. It has to be, the model has to come first. And so, very impressive model, back it up by very articulate and forceful, not forceful, convincing message. That's the only formula. And yet it's not going to work with everybody. The third criteria or requirement is al-mu'ayasha. This transformation happens through mentorship. It doesn't happen through lectures. Because these are not abstract ideas. These are things that people have to internalize. So, model. People have to see, especially people around you have to see. People who are seeing you for the first time, they have to see something special. Because people are not attracted to someone who is the same level. There should be some gap so that for me to look up to someone. That's people who are seeing you for the first time or interacting. People who knew you from before, they have to see the transformation. And they have to see that very positive. That you are now really different person. Then they will be asking what happened and message will come back. And then we need to guide people through this transformation. And I did it with a number of people. It takes time. I mean, it's not an overnight thing. Of course, different people at different pace, but once you put the person on the right track, then it becomes a matter of time and matter of pace. First step is probably the hardest. For someone to accept that we just have to make an effort to find the true Islam and embrace it, that basically whatever was conveyed to us, I mean, nobody had a bad intention. It's something that froze over centuries and was transferred from one generation to another until it became very irrelevant. Yes.
Is your message too hard on us? Because we need the changes in every angle in our life. My wife, she's not happy with me because I changed in this angle and I'm not changing in that one. It's no way for me to be changed in a couple of weeks in everywhere. I cannot increase my worship, I cannot increase doing at home, I cannot increase my income, I cannot, because it's too much change to ask us.
Nobody is expected to do this overnight. You commit to the big change and you implement it gradually. As long your day is better than yesterday, as long you are on the right track, nobody should expect to do this overnight. It's a commitment to the destination. It's a gradual implementation. So that you will not be lost in the way. You will not reach a point and you say that's no. You have your eyes is on the complete change. But don't try to do everything at once and to rush it. It doesn't work. What changes immediately is the direction. That you are going this way, now you are going this way. But you're not going to reach your destination overnight. So what needs to be done overnight is the change of direction. That's what happened when people declared Shahada at the time for Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now they were living for themselves, they decide to live for Allah. So they are pledging themselves, dedicating for this long journey and this demanding mission. But nobody has changed overnight. Even the Quran was revealed gradually, and things were forbidden gradually, things were prescribed gradually. There is a reason for that. There is a reason for us to rest. Even though now we start immediately praying 5 times and fasting, etc. They didn't do that, by the way. Even that happened gradually in the early days of Islam. So now we're starting at least from that baseline, but it's a long journey. وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ, meaning you should be always changing and adjustment and improving until you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you're going to try to do that, first you're going to fail and you'll be very disappointed. Don't promise that even to yourself. There is no such thing as overnight complete change. These are habits. I mean, changing the human being is the most difficult thing. This is not the button that you're going to rewind or play, or it's no. This is psychology, this is mindset, this is deeply entrenched habit that you have been doing for decades. No, don't try to do that. Don't promise anybody, don't promise yourself sudden change overnight. And even with all the change, we're not going to be perfect. So forget about perfectionism. Yes, keep the aspiration high and keep always challenge and push yourself, but forget about perfection, forget about complete sudden change. There is no such. It's as long you start thinking this way, you're holding yourself to a higher standard. You are on the right track. Because before we were happy with what we have. That's why we're stagnant. And you don't want to move from stagnation to, because by the way, the changes that happens quickly are also lost quickly. It's like the money that is made quickly. If you go by the elevator up, you also come down by the elevator. But if you do gradually, and what I recommend always is what? Always try to stabilize again before you build on it. Make sure that you don't go back. Make sure that there is something become very stable, deeply entrenched, etc., and then you build on it. Another thing that I recommend is what they call build up till breakthrough. That's what we don't do, by the way. This is very important. I don't know, we don't do it in our personal life, we don't do it in community life, we don't do it as nations. We don't do it. Build up until breakthrough. And we don't have the patience. That's why the build up never completed until you move to the next level. It's like the energy levels. I mean, you just have to go gradually until you make it to another stable level. That's called build up, which is to accumulate progress and gains. يعني مراكمة الإنجازات, if you will. And you keep accumulate accomplishment and achievement and progress until you get to a breakthrough. Our problem is always we think about shortcuts and there is no shortcut to us. And then when we don't make it, we feel very disappointed and very depressed. We shouldn't. Changes in the individual, changes in community, changes in nations, they take time. But unfortunately nowadays they're using this as an excuse for failure. They take time if you are on the right track. Because now you go to a country that is total mess, and then we talk to people and say, give us time. No, we give you time, it's getting worse. So if you are not on the right track, time is not going to solve it. I mean, time is for the people who are on the right track. But if you see things are deteriorating, then if I give you more time, it's going to only get worse. No, we have to accept the fact that things take time without abusing this concept of, no, inshallah with time. No, time by itself does not solve anything. Time for those who are on the right track and pushing forward. These, they were going to get there with time. So, as I said, have this plan, have this self-assessment, so that you would always identify what is working, what needs work. And the key is what? The key is to be on continuous improvement path, even if it is small. On a path of continuous improvement and continuous growth. That's why this concept of tazkiyah, self-development in Islam, is critical. Self-assessment, self-development. You keep always assessing yourself, and then you keep always making necessary adjustments. Yes?
I want to go back to the concept of hadith sahih with Adam. Even in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, when he did some things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it better or rectified it in another word. The adoption of Zayd, he called it Zayd ibn Muhammad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came back and said, no, don't be about him.
Yeah, the captive, the prisoners of war.
Correct. So it should be our duty to keep thinking about the hadith and keep thinking about the nusus with the proper understanding. The word of Allah always overrides the words of human beings.
No question.
The scary part, or the part that needs help, is when individuals, normal individuals like myself, look at the hadith and look at the ayah and find the contradiction. I don't have enough knowledge to say, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm not going to do. But that should be the path to start questioning and seeking from proper sources which one is the right one.
Beautiful. That's how and why I always say that when it comes to the ijtihad, everybody should contribute, even by raising questions and raising issues. You don't have to be the one who will answer them. But when you raise that issue, and people collectively, or those who are experts and scholars, etc., are challenged to find the answer, that's a progress. So even though you did not have the tools to answer that question, but you contributed to this process of ijtihad by saying, I see there is incompatibility between this hadith and this verse, and somebody tell me, how do you reconcile between those? And you will be surprised that sometimes average Muslims will raise issues that probably scholars didn't think about. And that's why when I encourage this, have this intellectual, become intellectually dynamics, meaning we all raise questions and ask and challenge. Even scholars will improve when you challenge them. They stagnate if nobody is challenging them. Now you know what we did in history? You see the Quran, and then the hadith, and then become the saying of the scholar. There are people who stick to what they're scholar of the madhab. Even when you tell them that there is a hadith, say no. That's how bad it was.
We reversed the paradigm.
Yeah, we reversed the paradigm.
We took what is less important
Yeah.
to be the word of the gospel word,
Yeah.
and left what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said very clearly to be up for interpretation.
It used to be, even though all the scholars of Islam, the founders of the schools of thought in Islam, each one of them was saying to his student, when you find the hadith, throw away my words. Because at that time the hadith still not collected all of them, and some hadith did not reach them. So each of the founders of schools say, this is my ijtihad, that's my opinion. But when you find the hadith, throw away my opinion. Just forget about it. Yet you had people who came after them and say, no, our scholar said this, but there is a hadith. So no, we're not going to accept that hadith because it's not consistent with what the scholars say. So as you said, we reverse the paradigm. So now what the scholars say comes first, and then the hadith, and then I don't know who will think about the Quran even.
No need.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's when people freeze their mind. Remember that this deen did not came. Revelation is not a substitute for thinking. That's one of the biggest mistakes that we committed. Out of so many, that we devastated this deen. That say, no, don't think. This deen, you know the typical example. What's the example people mention? Masah. When you make masah for wudu, they say if you're going to use logic, you should you do the bottom of the feet. But this deen is not with logic.
Or tayammum.
Yeah.
You do wudu to clean yourself, and tayammum you get dirt on yourself.
Yeah. They're saying if deen is logic, then when you do masah, you should do the bottom, not the top. But because of, just take it as is, don't think. That's not true. I mean, there is ibadat in the deen that we do them exactly as the Prophet ﷺ did. And these are not you don't need to think about them. These are things but that's small part of the deen. This deen revelation came to enlighten the thinking, to stimulate and enlighten, guide. And one of the main things that revelation does is what? Is to keep you away from wasting time and efforts on things that you are not equipped for. So don't think about the day of judgment. Don't think about life after death. Don't think about ghaib. Don't try to imagine Allah. You are not equipped to do that. Why Islam did this for us? So that you can focus on the things that you are equipped for. And you know, humanity throughout history wasted a lot of time on these issues. Wasted a lot of time trying to figure out the ghaib, the unseen. Islam came to say, that's the part that you don't waste time on it. Because you're not equipped to deal with it. So that your mind will be dedicated fully to the things for which it is equipped. So you see the confusion is, yes, don't waste time on this. Don't use your mind on this. Why? Because you're not equipped for it. That's the unseen. But the purpose was not, don't use your mind at all. The purpose was, don't waste time on this so that you can focus on things for which, and that's why when Muslims understood Islam properly, they excelled. They excelled in science, they excelled in art, they excelled in architecture until now. Things that was done centuries ago. Until now people go and visit them, they're wonders. Why? Because this brain was freed, it was not paralyzed. No, it was freed from wasting time and energy on things that we were not equipped for. So that people were dedicated for what this mind is equipped for.
Even the little things or the small things that you said were following because the Prophet ﷺ did them, we just follow them that way. They instill discipline. So something that we don't understand the reason behind. They instill discipline. It was done this way, it was told to be done this way. You can't find a reason within yourself to do it, but it shows you how to be a good follower. It shows you how to be a good abid. And to instill that discipline in you to continue on this path. That's
true, but even these things, we are encouraged to try to understand the wisdom. I mean, read the verse of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever He says something, He tries to tell us why. لَعَلَّكُمْ first, that's the goal. But then explains why. That's a training for us. It's training for us to think about the why. The why in two ways. Why as what is the reason, and why what is the goal. Even in these things we should be there. Nowadays, when there's said so many things about fasting, so many benefits about fasting, we understand with statistics the damage that is caused by drinking in societies, in families. So that makes us more comfortable with the fact that it was forbidden. It's not like we're not going to drink until we're not going to stop drinking until we understand the reason, or we're not going to fast until we understand the benefit. No, you do it, and that will teach you discipline. But also on top of that, you are encouraged to try to think about the wisdom behind it. It makes you more comfortable. Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah to show him how He brings things back to life. قال ولم تؤمن قال بلى ولكن ليطمئن قلبي. You just want to become more comfortable. Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah to show him how He brings the dead to life. resurrect things. قال ربي أرني كيف تحيي الموتى. قال ولم تؤمن. قال بلى ولكن ليطمئن قلبي. I just want to become more comfortable. Allah told Ibrahim alayhi salam, do you have any doubt? Did you believe? Say no, but I just want to become be more comfortable and more assured. So the more you understand the wisdom behind even the ibadat themselves, the more you become comfortable. It's amazing how this Quran, how we learn exactly opposite. How much this Quran stimulates the thinking, encourage you to ask questions, even as you read the verses. It tells you why this was done, why this was forbidden, why إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes even to the يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس وإثمهما أكبر من نفعهما. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah says that they ask you about gambling and alcohol or drinking. يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس. Yeah. It's a verse 219. Surah 2, Baqarah, verse 219. They ask you about drinking and gambling. Tell them there is a great sin in both. Although they may have some benefit for man. But their sin is greater than their benefit. It's amazing. I mean, this verse, and I wish we really understand it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about the way of thinking. Forget about the specific of the alcohol. It's a way of thinking. Whenever you are look at pros and cons and see the one that has more advantage than disadvantage. وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. Why they are forbidden? Because the disadvantage outweighs the advantage. It's a mindset that this Quran is trying to shape our mind. That this is way of thinking and way of making decisions. Compare things. Even when it comes to gambling and drinking. Say there are benefits for people. There may be health benefit, there may be financial benefit. There are benefits for people. But the harm outweighs the good. All right. We didn't have time to... Let me want to shed some light on one verse.
Allahu
We're starting the second juz'ah of Al-Baqarah, and we start with the verse, very important, which is, your role among nations is the same as the role of the prophets among you. كذلك جعلناكم أمة وسطا لتكونوا شهداء على الناس ويكون الرسول عليكم شهيدا. So your role, your duty, responsibility toward humanity was the same as the role of the Prophet ﷺ amongst you. That's a verse that was repeated also at the end of Surah Al-Hajj. I find it very fundamental verse. Now this was mentioned, the beginning of second juz'ah talked about the incident in the Seerah of Rasul ﷺ, which is the change of Qibla. You know, Muslims were asked to pray in the beginning where? Jerusalem. And then were shifted to Mecca. By the way, the first decision was tough, the second was tough. Because you are in a very hostile environment. People are after you for anything. Now why the first one? Of course, when you say why, we're just trying to understand. We'll never know why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did something, but we just try to understand. Try to come up, probably try to figure out. And for me, there are two reasons why Muslims were asked to pray to Jerusalem. One maybe was continuation to pick up from previous nations, because we inherited the same mission. That's probably not the most important, but I can see this maybe the case. Second, which is probably more important, is that these are the people who are remember, these are the people who are designated to change the world. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants these people to be purely dedicated to Him. I mean, their level of sincerity is unequivocal. People were attached to Mecca before and to Kaaba because that's the
Heritage.
culture and that's what they inherited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to change that. So asked them to pray to Jerusalem, so that when they came back to pray to Kaaba, it's pure. Now they're doing it because in response to the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not tradition anymore. It's not habit. So it's that purifying people. I mean, people are purified in a number of ways. One of them is to be tested. I mean, and the Sahaba, subhanAllah, they went from one test to another. This was not easy, by the way. This is a very tribal, and Mecca has very special status in all the Arabian Peninsula, and you are asked to go and to start praying to Jerusalem was very hard. But they passed the test. And then when they came back, what did the mushrikeen say? The disbelievers, what did they say? Say, so all your prayers before was lost. So it's a warak. They're not leaving you alone. You pray to Jerusalem, there is a problem. You came back to Mecca, there is a problem. So this is one incident in which Muslims were purified. Another incident similar that may have the same goal. You know, Muslims were forbidden from fighting in Mecca. That's not easy, by the way. You're talking about people who that's what they used to do. I mean, fighting was their hobby. They're fighting all the time. So to ask an Arab just to accept the humiliation and mistreatment and don't retaliate wasn't easy at all. And then it was permitted, of course, under certain conditions and requirements. Again, so that when you do it, when you do something, you do it for sake of Allah. It's not because... and that tells you also that Islam tells you one important role that Islam plays. Islam does not come and change people completely. Because in every culture, there are some good elements. What does Islam do to those good elements? Adopt them and put his stamp on them. I mean, Islam came and found the Arabs very generous. He didn't say you have to change, but they used to be generous for show off. Now, man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawm al-akhir falyukrim dayfa. You're still doing the same act with a different intention. Islam came and found those people very brave. Didn't say that you have to become coward. Just because now you are Muslim, then you have to change everything. No, they remain to be brave. But they used to be brave because of hamiyya. Quran call it hamiyya, out of show off, tribal motivation. Now we are brave for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then in the middle of the verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? To the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قد نرى تقلب وجهك في السماء فلنولينك قبلة ترضاها. I don't know why we lost these human touches in the Quran. Prophet Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, human being. It was hard for him, the time praying to Jerusalem. So he used to look to the heavens. It says, "Oh Muhammad, many times we have noticed you turning your face towards heaven." It's asking Allah that if you can change. I mean, it was hard on him. And a lot of time when we deal with the Prophet, we forget that he's a human being, and we forget that the companions are even human. They're a human being. That test was not easy. So we didn't ask, but Allah says, we got it. I mean, so you noticed that you were hinting that you want. فَلَنُوَلِّيَنَّكَ قِبْلَةً تَرَى. So that's, now we shall make you turn towards a qibla that will please you. So that's, again, that some the human touches in Quran, that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a human being. He has the same feeling. It was very hard for him to leave Mecca. Very hard for him to change the qibla, etc. Unfortunately, for some reason we were told that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions, etc., as if they were Superman, they're not a human being. No, they were. I mean, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was asked to for the incident of tabanni, the adopting, I mean, تخفي في نفسك ما الله مبديه. It was hard to tell people. فلما قضى زيد منها وطرا زوجناك لكي لا يكون على المؤمنين حرج. This is the son of the Prophet, was adopted son, and was married to
Prophet's relative. The Prophet's relative.
yeah.
No.
And then he divorced her, and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam married her. That was at the time, in that culture, a disaster. So Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted the man to keep his wife. He didn't want to go through that. That's very hard. وَتَخْشَى النَّاسَ وَاللَّهُ أَحَقُّ أَن تَخْشَاهُ. Does this take anything away from the Prophet? No. I mean, the greatest man who has ever walked on earth. But when we forget that he is a human being, by the way, we fall in the trap that we are not supposed to hold ourselves to that standard. Why? Because he's not a human being. He's something else. And then, how about the companions? These are the companions. You see how small, wrong idea here has so many implications. When we forget that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a human being, when we forget that the companions are a human being, immediately after that comes what? The implication comes we don't hold ourselves to that standard. Why? Because these are special people. They were human beings. So this verse confirmed that it was hard for Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was basically asking Allah very politely that can we change the qibla? He wanted to go back to pray to Mecca. You can see how this Quran is full of guidance and full of inspiration and amazing. I mean, it's something that you can live with all the time, and you will never get bored, and you will never run out of guidance and inspiration. Inshallah, we'll come back next week. We'll do more tafsir. Inshallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
No, guys, we need to put the